Hello, I'm Angelica or Jelly, and today I would like to talk about language, the language we use and why. And the core of what I'm trying to say here is that the language that we use in conversation, like on an everyday basis, has the power to either further cultural norms and perpetuate them and enliven them, embody them, justify them, or on the flip side, language can challenge norms, can dismantle norms, can illuminate what we're saying is normal, and then give us an opportunity to either reject it or move on, whatever it might be. So I'm going to get into some of the reasons of why I think that sticks and stones doesn't apply to slurs and hate speech. And I'm going to be talking about language and its connection to culture. And I like to start off by saying that a lot of people might be wondering, why would you make a video about sticks and stones not applying to hate speech? Like, isn't that relatively obvious? And unfortunately, I think no, it's not obvious enough that people still assume that the words that come out of their mouth are somehow meaningless. And language isn't something that just like came to me in terms of like, oh, I think I'll make a blog post about language today. Really, it's like an everyday thing that comes up because I'm a sensitive person. And so the things that I overhear other people say about themselves or about one another, they stick with me for a long time after I hear them. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from when I make this video, is that I would like to lighten the load in terms of the words that we use toward each other. There's so much that we say and do that just really dehumanizes one another, and we act like because it's language or because it's verbal, it doesn't matter as much. I personally think that verbal abuse and language have incredible power, and so I'm not one to say that they matter less or more than physical abuse. I think that they are all part of the same bag of tricks. So the two examples I'd like to use in terms of conversational language are both part of American culture. We live in America in a rape culture, right? Rape has always been part of American culture, and so rape is not a new part of American society. However, it is aggressively and exponentially growing in terms of the amount of people affected by it. I think that it would be fair to assess the situation by saying, well, it's become normal, so therefore it's going to keep happening more and more, right? And so the way that language comes into play, I actually have talked about this with multiple different people recently to kind of like get their input for this video. And actually I just had a really interesting conversation with my mom about how she didn't even know that like kids these days use the term rape in conversation. Like she had never heard it done before. She doesn't play online video games, obviously. So one of the ways that I hear this come up a lot, it's typically something that I hear from white males. It's really something that I hear a lot from cis males, particularly in their 20s. And what I hear is things like this. I raped that math test, or like, dude, you just got raped, like in like, you know, the sense that your character just got I don't know, beaten to the next level or whatever in Call of Duty or something. They're not discussing a sexual abuse. They're discussing something that's actually relatively unrelated to sex abuse. So a math test, for example. And so like my mom was telling me she'd never heard anybody use these terms in such a casual manner. Like, it's always just like, oh, this person was raped, and then it's like a serious conversation. So that was new information for her, that people use rape in conversational language to talk about really like a victory. Like, what you're trying to say when you talk about your math test is that you aced it, or that you passed it, or that you passed with flying colors, right? Pass with flying colors is a term that my mom probably is really used to conversationally. Raping a math test is something that's not normal to her, but to me, I wouldn't say that it's normal, but it's something that I hear very commonly. So when I'm with those kind of people, so it's not normal to me, but I understand it to be part of our culture now. I use this example because I think that a lot of times people who use the word feel some sort of distance between the actual meaning of the word rape. Obviously means something about sexually violating somebody on a very serious level, and then what you're using it as means nothing of the sort. You're using it to denote the fact that you did well on a math test, or you just got beaten in a virtual video game. So the fact that there's a distance created, to me, speaks to both desensitization and dehumanization when it comes to victims of rape and sex abuse. So desensitization means that when I say the word rape in conversation and it's followed by me laughing because I'm actually talking about something else that's, to me, amusement, like a video game, that really speaks to a disconnect, right? And something that I find really uncomfortable that happens a lot is when men try to get other men to care about rape by using each other's family members. So by saying, well, what if it was your sister or your mom or your aunt or your granny? And I find that to be kind of like surface scratching when it comes to having us talk about human dignity. Like, it really shouldn't take it being a personal connection for you to understand that rape is unacceptable. It shouldn't take that. You shouldn't wish rape on anybody. And the fact that you will only care if it's someone who matters to you, that to me is not revolutionary, and that to me is not something that's going to dismantle rape culture. That's just something that is like the very beginning steps of having people understand that there's a human dignity and a human rights issue going on. So when I hear people say this, sometimes my reaction varies. Sometimes I just say, can you not use that word? Sometimes I say, I'll almost like repeat it back to them just to have them hear it coming from me. You might hear something different when it comes out of my mouth. But the other example I was going to use in terms of how conversational things are reflective of culture is the N-word. And the N-word is very, very different when it comes to the use than the word rape, because the word rape is just a verb. It's not a slur. So when you're now talking about the N-word as a slur, and it's being brought into conversational language in two ways. One, in the way of it's an insult and a put down and an attack and a dehumanizing word when it ends with ER. And the other way would be that when you take off the ER and make it an A, and it becomes part of a process of reclaiming. I think where people get confused is in terms of who's allowed to reclaim what. So let me just reiterate what those who have come before me will say, which is, you cannot claim what's not yours, so you cannot reclaim what's not yours. I don't know how to be any more clear about that. It becomes like this puzzle to people, and I don't understand why, like, Mark Lamont Hill is like, just don't use it. Like, it's really that simple. If you're not black, you can't reclaim the N-word. So if you're trying to, what you're really doing is just contributing to the same old shit of white supremacy, anti-blackness, racism, dehumanizing black people. So you need to stop. Something that I find really irritating is when I'm observing people who are not black but of color use this word. Okay, so here's an example of how this might happen. I've seen a kid who was Chicano, Mexican. I've seen this person say, oh, you're just a bunch of N-words. Or when this kid that I'm speaking about was, over here talking about N-word this, N-word that, he can then, for some reason, turn over to a different side of things when his homie walks in the room and be like, oh, what's up, my nigga? As if he didn't just spend 10 minutes dogging everybody and calling them N-words. So obviously he's failing at life, because what he thinks he's doing to reclaim it over here by saying, what's up, my nigga, is completely contradictory and just terrible when you think about that. He was just a second ago dehumanizing and berating people by calling them the word that it began as. This word didn't begin as a thing that black people were calling each other. It began as a slur to denote someone's subhumanness, right? They're not a first-class citizen. They're not even a second-class citizen. They're not even a citizen. They are just an N-word. It's like animal. It's like not human to the people who are using this word in a negative way. So to see a person know that history over here when they're using it as a slur, and then over here try to reclaim it as if it's theirs, is really frustrating, because this person cannot possibly be serious. Like, you are the bane of my existence. So, that's my example when it comes to conversation. These are my examples in terms of what is conversational, okay? And these are not things that I have said myself. These are things that I have observed. So please don't get it twisted in terms of I'm saying that I've said these things. Not at all. I'm saying this is what I've observed. And the N-word is a form of hate speech. So if you're going to use it as hate speech, you probably are not a candidate for reclaiming that word for the positive use. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that just doesn't happen. And now I'd like to switch gears for a second and talk about this wonderful event I went to last night called Dreaming Wildly, Fighting to Win, and it was hosted by a nonprofit group called Critical Resistance, and they have a few different chapters around the U.S., but basically they're the only nationwide nonprofit concerned with ending the prison industrial complex. And so their event last night was moderated by the amazing artist Melanie Cervantes, who does a lot of different types of visual and mixed media art, but she's just a brilliant mind. So she was there moderating, and the conversation featured in the evening was between Martina Espada, who's a Puerto Rican political poet from Harlem, I believe, and then the wonderful Angela Davis. And there's really nothing that I can say about Angela Davis that hasn't been said in terms of her just being such a powerful example of a person who is of the people, for the people, and just so like bright and kind and willing to discuss absolutely anything with anybody. The reason that I bring up what I went to last night is because there was this moment when Angela Davis asked Mr. Espada, Martina Espada, sorry, I forgot his name for a second, she asked him, like basically how and why is it that movements, like grassroots, people-oriented movements, oftentimes get their thrust from art? Like, how is it that people are moved more by poetry than they are by a debate or by watching someone make a speech? And his answer was just like really, really incredible, because what he was saying was that, like, as a political poet, your job is to, at the very basic level, tell stories. Like, you are a storyteller. But the power in that really comes from naming things that are hidden and things that society and culture have tried to hide or minimize. And he called it making the invisible visible. And he also talked a lot. He talked a lot the whole night about language. But one thing that I really, really liked was he used the example of how, like, war-related words, like collateral damage, these are oftentimes things that people use to, what he called, drain the blood from what your topic is. So, like, you're basically making it this, like, sterile assessment, like collateral damage, as if it's like, well, I went over here to do this, and unfortunately this happened in the process. When really the this that happened in the process that was unfortunate is that lives were lost. And that's not like this, like, willy-nilly thing, well, it just happened, like you were an agent to that. But somehow saying collateral damage removes any sort of accountability, or he says drains the blood, because literally it's removing any sort of human existence and human experience and just making it about collateral. So, you're just collateral. So he says that, political poets, like, it's your duty to put the blood back into words, so that when people hear what you're saying, even though you might be using a word like collateral damage, you are naming it. You are putting sensory human experience into it in a way that then people can't just listen to it and hear a word. What they are doing is then feeling something. And he was like, it's not just about writing a poem and saying, well, this part of society is a lie, and this is a lie, and lie, 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 lie. He's not saying, like, name it in that way. He's saying put the blood back into it. Like, for example, the word rape. That shouldn't be something that just rolls off of your tongue in conversation because you're talking about a math test. It should be something that has weight to it, and feeling and emotion that cannot be severed. But for some reason, we've severed those ties culturally, and so we're now in a place where young men in particular feel empowered by saying that they raped something. And that, to me, is really frightening and telling at the same time of what language reflects in our culture and how culture reflects the language that we use, and is driven by it. I think that all of this, in terms of people taking and mistaking meaning, I think it all plays back into this idea of playing dumb. And sometimes we don't know that we're playing dumb, but we're just doing it anyway. But, like, for example, either the rape example, you're playing dumb because you know what the word means, you know what it means, but that's not how you're using it right now, so you're playing dumb, right? Or the N-word, like this person that can use it as a slur 1 second and then use it to talk about their friends the next. And I know the difference. I know there's a difference between the ER ending and the A ending. I understand the difference, but I think what people don't understand is that the A ending is an offshoot of the first one. So basically, you have centuries of sanctioned, institutionalized racism. If you compare how long it was used to dehumanize versus how long it's been used to reclaim people's humanity, they don't even compare. So, like, I'm aware of the history, It's just a matter of the fact that I think some people play dumb about it, because when it comes to music, they're like, what? It's just a word. I can use this word even if I'm not black, because it's just, why do rappers say it then? Or why would black people call themselves that if I can't call them that? And it's just like, are you that basic? Like, are you really that basic? Is that possible? Because if that's the kind of stuff you say, like, I can only imagine the kind of things that you do. So I know it's possible, but it's really frightening. But so yeah, I think again, all of these things go back to people being willing to, or just playing dumb in general, like just not having any sort of desire to think about what they're saying. And you know, sometimes I'm forgiving in conversation, because what I want is change. What I want is to not have to hear this language all the time. So I have to force myself to seek opportunities of learning for people, like, oh, well, you didn't know, so let me help you, or let's talk about this. But there are times when talking it out just doesn't seem to be in my best interest, whether it be because my patience is running out and all of a sudden I'm like ridiculously upset, or maybe it's just that this person that I'm talking with is absolutely closed-minded, like has absolutely no desire to think about what they say, or the power that might be instilled in the words that they use. And those closed-minded situations and scenarios are generally the ones when I just either cuss someone out and tell them fuck off and leave me the fuck alone, or I just walk away and remove myself until I am able to collect my thoughts and maybe then start again later. But I guess what I'm trying to say is there's power in all of our conversations, no matter how big or small they are. And if you're the kind of person who, like me, notices and is affected by the words that people use around you, then maybe we can all do better. Because I know I have a lot of opportunities where I can speak up. I'm learning that the more that I hang out with people who are more irritated by me calling something out versus them being irritated by the thing that I'm calling out, whether it be racist or whatever, typically speaking, those are not people that I need to be spending any time with, because they make me feel, for some reason I allow them to, make me feel like I'm the crazy one for caring. And like, if I'm hanging out with somebody and I'm like, yo, that's racist, they're like, I'm not racist, blah, blah, blah. And how could you call me that? How dare you, blah, blah, blah. And all they focus on is the fact that I said something was racist, and they can't be bothered to think about the fact that what they said might be problematic and racist. They're probably pretty okay being racist. Even though they're telling you that they're not, they're all right with it. What they don't want to be is called racist. And those are two different things. Like, me saying I don't want to be racist and me saying don't call me racist are two different things. There's so many ways that we're desensitized in America because of the way that we talk about things. We really like to dance around issues. And I don't see that as progressive or radical or revolutionary at all. I see it as very, very sticky and just rusty and crusty and decaying, because it serves no purpose. So I guess I'll end on that note. I would love any feedback in terms of if I said anything problematic today. I really was trying to be as cognizant as possible when it comes to me talking about different stigmas and words and slurs. That's really the last thing I want, is to be problematic and part of the problem. I tried my hardest to speak about things that matter to me in a way that doesn't turn people off. Yeah, we can do better to empower one another through language rather than beat each other down and discourage one another. Because people shouldn't be dying over language, people shouldn't be killing each other or killing themselves over the things that come out of our mouth. But that's the way that it is in this world, is that words have power, and, you know, the 50 billionth time that someone calls you, you know, fat, or the 50 billionth time that someone calls you faggot. You know, those are things that do not operate in a vacuum. They are just kind of like reminders for those people who are on the receiving end that that is how culture and that's how society feels about you. Whether that's true or not, that's what the language is telling you. So I think it's really important for us to talk about language, even though it sounds kind of silly. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching.